Hello and welcome back to Strictly Between Us, week 9. This is part 3, Foxtrotting into the future, where we'll be talking about what we're looking forward to from the rest of the series. Now, we're not actually that far away from the end, Minnie, which is upsetting.
It's on the horizon.
It's on the horizon. So, Minnie, who do you think we're going to lose before we actually get to the quarterfinals?
Well, we have 2 more couples to lose before we have our finalised quarterfinal lineup. I think the likely ones that we are going to lose is maybe different to the ones that I think should get lost along the way.
Definitely.
I think the ones who are not making it to the quarterfinals at this point are Molly and Ellie Taylor. That would be my prediction of the way the next 2 eliminations are going to pan out.
Yeah, and that makes sense, unfortunately, given that Molly's been in the bottom 2 the most with alongside Fleur.
Yeah.
That is, they've both been in the bottom 2 twice. And I also just think Ellie Taylor is the weakest at this point in the competition. So unfortunately, I disagree with it on the Molly side, but I do think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, who do you think they'll be facing in the bottom 2?
Well, as you mentioned, Fleur's also struggled sometimes with getting those votes in to stay out of that dance-off. So I think we're probably looking at, across these 2 dance-offs, some combination of Molly, Ellie Taylor and Fleur. That would be, those are my kind of top 3 that we're probably going to end up threatened with those dance-offs. I don't know who you think the 4th place could go to.
Well, I think it could be Tyler again, unfortunately, because I love Tyler. I'm a big Tyler stan.
As we know.
As we know. However, obviously last weekend he was in the bottom 2, and we know if Tony had danced it, he probably would have survived. Yeah. But at this point, I think with everything being quite unpredictable, you just don't know. And
it does feel a bit like you mentioned with Will, like Will plateaued or dipped or something a couple of weeks ago and has sort of started coming back up and finding his feet again. Feels like Tyler's kind of dipping a little bit at the moment, not just last week, but even like recent weeks just haven't been as glowing as the weeks before.
No.
And like we said, anything could happen. So that would be our prediction for who's gonna be in that kind of like 2 dance-offs. And we think out of those 2, Molly and Ellie Taylor are gonna lose their places in the competition. But what do we think should happen? Who do we think should be in the quarterfinals?
So I think, well, I guess inversely, I don't think Ellie Taylor should make it, unfortunately. Yeah. Sorry, Ellie.
I'm with you.
I just don't think, you're up to standard at this point. And, I mean, rather controversially, I don't think Helen should be either. And I know people love Helen. I know she's been improving week after week. However, I think you could just tell in the last show, she wasn't 100% in it. She was doing the steps, but her face was, you could tell she was a bit overwhelmed. And with it being so neck and neck at this point, unfortunately, that doesn't cut the mustard.
It's true, yeah. She's kind of up against that middle of the leaderboard. Spaces are really being occupied by people like her and Kim. And I think Kim Marsh has just excelled technically in recent weeks. She's really come on leaps and bounds. And while Helen Skelton's clearly a talented dancer, in any other series of Strictly 10 years ago, she would have just obliterated the competition. She's not selling it as much. She's not as technically adept as Kim Marsh. So I just don't know that if, for example, if she and Kim found themselves against each other in the bottom 2, Kim would win that one.
Yes, definitely.
And I think what we're saying is those are the ones we think probably should be battling out of the places, rather than people like Molly and Fleur, who we would like to see in that quarterfinal lineup.
Definitely. But I mean, it is hard picking because they are all quite good at this point.
Yeah.
But, unfortunately, people have to be eliminated.
We have to lose 2 more couples between now and the quarterfinals. So it's going to be brutal.
But as long as we don't lose Hamza...
As long as we don't lose Hamza, everything is okay.
Then it's going to be fine. And I don't think the general British public would let that happen.
We can't let that happen.
No, please. So I think that's it for Strictly Between Us this week. Thank you so much for joining us again. And let us know if you agree with what we had to say over on Twitter @Radio Times. Take care and see you next week. Bye.